Hi there, I'm Joe Todaro. Welcome back to Put Games to Work. Before we begin, I want to give a quick shout out to my buddy John Coview over at Genius Games. Genius Games is doing some really interesting work. Basically what they do is they design board games and card games around scientific principles, ideas, and theories. Definitely worth checking out. Go over, check them out at geniusgames.org. We're going to be talking with John in a few videos. We got a little bit of groundwork to lay here, but we'll be talking with John about the work that he's doing at Genius Games. For now, here's what we're going to do. Last video, we really started with the why behind instructional games, because without a good why, there's really no point in getting into how you do it well. So over the next few videos, we really want to dive into the how of designing effective instructional games. I think this is where it's going to get fun. So this is what we're going to be doing. Over the next 5 or 6 videos, we're going to be exploring different game mechanics so that we can set ourselves up for a prototyping session. But first, we need to have a better understanding of what mechanics are. All right, so that's what we're going to be focusing on in this video. Now, the fundamental distinction we want to make here that's really important and very familiar to the game designers and game aficionados is the distinction between theme and mechanic in a game. The theme is what the game is about, and the mechanics are how the game works. Basically, mechanics are a combination of rules and components that creates the context for making choices in the game. Now, there's more going on there, but that's a good place to start. We're going to be going deeper into what mechanics are and different types of mechanics over the next few videos. For now, let's make sure we understand the difference between theme and mechanic. So let's take an example. Most popular example for folks that are only mildly familiar with games is Monopoly. Most people have heard of and even played Monopoly. Monopoly, what is it about? The theme, or what it's about, is to be a real estate tycoon, buying up properties and driving other people out of business while you make all kinds of money. That's what it's about. That's its game's theme. Now, one of the mechanics going on in Monopoly is what's called roll and move. You roll dice and you move your pawn around the board. That is an example of a game mechanic, a combination of components and rules that allow you to make choices in the game. With the roll and move in Monopoly, you roll, you move to a particular property, and you make the choice of whether you purchase or not that particular property, for instance. So again, mechanics, combination of rules and components to create the context for making choices within the context of the game. Okay, so now to really drive this point home, let's take a look at another game called Seven Summits, which, like Monopoly, makes use of this roll and move mechanic, but as you're going to see, it does it in a slightly different way. First thing to notice, the game's theme is very different from Monopoly. Monopoly is about being a real estate tycoon. Seven Summits is about being mountain climbers and climbing up 7 different summits or 7 different mountains, hence 7 summits. But it does use the roll and move mechanics, so similar mechanics to Monopoly, even with the very different theme. But it does it slightly differently. So let's take a look at how 7 Summits uses the roll and move mechanic. Okay, so this is 7 Summits. In 7 Summits, you control 7 different mountain climbers, and you're trying to get them to the top of each of the mountains. So how does that work? So you have individual dice, 1 for each mountain. So orange here is for Vincent, purple is for Denali, etc. Notice that Everest doesn't have its own die. That's because you can use any of the dice that you roll to move up Everest. So again, it's a roll and move mechanic. You roll dice and move your guys to try to get up to the top of the mountain. But unlike in Monopoly, where in Monopoly you only have 1 pawn that you get to move around the board, here you have 7 pawns, which creates a different set of choices. So let's go ahead and roll and see what we get. I roll the dice, and let's take a look at the purple. I get a 2 there. So that means I can move up 2 on Denali, right? So after I've chosen my die and where I'm going to move up which mountain, my opponent gets to choose one of the remaining dice and move their pawns up a mountain. So that creates an interesting choice for me. I can anticipate what does my opponent want to do? Which die is most advantageous to my opponent? So for instance, the 4 here might be a really good die for my opponent to roll to move up Kilimanjaro. So that might motivate me to steal that die and use the Kilimanjaro die to move my guy up there to prevent my opponent from doing so. So you can still see there's a roll and move mechanic going on in Seven Summits, but it creates the context for very different choices in that mechanic as opposed to Monopoly. I hope that makes clear this distinction between theme and mechanic. Again, it's going to be very important to us over the next few videos as we explore game mechanics and create basically a toolbox of valuable game mechanics so that we're able to actually prototype an instructional game for a particular performance outcome. So next video, we're going to explore our first mechanic beyond roll and move, and that mechanic is called the event deck. I'll see you in the next video.